Hello, and welcome to Hosta la Vista, the podcast where the shade is cool, the leaves are lush, and friendship's perennial. We are your hosts. I'm Betsy Peterson.
And I'm Mandy Olson.
Two hobbyist sisters who love this plant as much as you do.
Join us each week as we dig into all things hosta, the plant affectionately known as the friendship plant.
Welcome, listeners, to our very first episode of Hosta la Vista. We decided that our first episode, we would just give you a little background. So we're hoping that this podcast will be for a wide variety of hosta lovers, whether you're a beginner, a collector, a hybridizer, a show judge, or just your average hosta lover.
So normally, each week, we would have a guest on the pod. But this week, we are interviewing each other. I would start by talking about how I got into hostas. About 20 years ago, we bought our property, and it's 5 acres, and it is a lot of shade everywhere. There's half of it are black walnut trees, probably about 300 of them. So I found that I needed to come up with a way of landscaping in the shade, and I was clueless. I had no idea what to put down. So I found myself at the nursery in the shade section trying to find anything that would grow. We've got mature oaks all around the house, and not much grows under them. So I picked up 2 elegans, and that was kind of it. I put them in the ground. That was 2021. That wasn't that long ago. And ever since then, I have been addicted to hostas. I find them everywhere. I find them in the nurseries, obviously. I go online. I do a lot of online shopping for hostas. And lately, I have been growing them from seed, which is incredibly fun. I look for seeds that are offered on many of the Facebook groups every fall, and it just offers something to do in the winter. I can suffer sometimes from seasonal affective disorder. Growing stuff in the dead of winter really helps with that. It's just an addictive plant. I am up to 283. I had to go count.
Holy cow, I didn't know that.
Yeah,
Wow.
it's kind of embarrassing, but
No, not for this podcast, it's not.
wanted to have a good number there for you guys, but when there are literally thousands of them out there, maybe I'm a beginner when you think I've only been doing this since 2021.
That's amazing. Plus that's a lot to have in, what is it, 4 years?
Yeah,
That's pretty
yeah.
amazing. Have you done any of the online auctions?
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
okay.
There's a lot of people out there selling their seedlings that they grow, their streak seedlings, and I've gotten quite a few of those. And there's some great sellers on Facebook Facebook pages too.
Yeah,
So
for sure. And what growing zone are you in? I can't remember.
I am in growing zone 7A. What about you?
7A. I'm pretty sure I'm still 4B, but if you go about 30 minutes south of our house, it becomes 5A. So I'm
Okay.
right on that edge between the two. My story is a little different. Before we moved, I lived in Kansas City and I had hostas there, and I just kind of bought whatever they had at the big box store and planted them around the tree because I thought that's kind of what you were supposed to do with hostas. And they never really did much. I mean, they kind of stayed the same size they were. They didn't die, but they didn't grow either. And that was my experience with hosta. But then I married a Minnesotan, and we started coming up to Minnesota for all of our summers. And man, it is a totally different land up here. It's amazing. So when we moved up to here to Minnesota, we bought a house that had absolutely no landscaping in it. I mean, there was like white rock all the way around the edge of the house, and that was it. They had planted, just to sell the house, 3 little clumps of golden tiara out front. That following summer, I ended up putting in a shade garden. And I think maybe it was because I'd come down to see you, or I can't remember the exact story, but my mother-in-law also has a whole bunch of hosta. And the thing that I learned about moving up here is everybody's clump of hosta is 4 feet wide and 2.5 feet tall. And they are lush and glorious, and they're in everybody's yard. And that to me was just this shock to the system because I that wasn't how it was in Kansas City. So I dug up some of the backyard and I put in a shade garden. And I still remember I bought August Moon, Lancifolia, Captain Kirk, Gypsy Rose, and Patriot. Those were my initial five. And then my mother-in-law found out that I'd put in the shade garden and she goes, "Oh, come over to the house. I'll give you a big clump of mine." Which, again, coming from Kansas, watching her take her shovel and smash it down into the middle of this enormous hosta and then just yank back and grab a grocery sack and throw this football sized clump of dirt with these huge leaves on it and then hand me these bags of hosta. I was like, whoa, I am not in Kansas anymore. Holy cow. It was just,
No
even to this
kidding.
day, I'm like, no, 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 don't kill your plant. Don't kill your plant. Oh, wait, they're supposed to do this.
They don't die. They don't
They
die when you do that. Yeah.
No, they don't die. So she ended up giving me, and I kind of call them the grandma hostas, but the three varieties of undulata. And I'm not disparaging undulata. I think they're lovely. I still have huge clumps of them around my house, but they're the hosta that everybody has. I mean, everybody has up here. And there's a reason. They grow super well. You can really mistreat those things, and they just keep coming back. And every spring they look beautiful as always. She had a unique one in her yard, though. She did give me a big clump of climax, which um, I don't know if you're familiar with that one, but it's huge and beautiful. And like
Of
the
course.
leaves are, well, I know you are, I guess I should say, but the
Say I killed mine, remember? And you just gave me more.
that's true. I guess I was thinking the listeners. If the
Okay.
listeners are not familiar with that, you're like, of course I am. But no, the leaves are like the size of your face. I mean, it was just, and she's just digging down into this clump, and here you go. Here's a Walmart sack with, clump of climax in it. And so that, they took off, they did great. And for, 6 or so years, they just did lovely. They did exactly what I wanted them to do in my garden. I put some ferns in there too, and the dog kind of trampled them to death. But then I came down to see you. And I don't know if you remember this, but you had started to hybridize in your basement. Do you remember that first time you did that?
Oh yeah. This is my third year of growing
Okay.
growing. And so that was, yeah, that was 2023 then. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too. It was
Yeah.
2023. And you said, "Come here, come here, come here." And you took me down into your basement and you had this rack of like wire shelving and a bunch of little baby hosta seedlings under purple grow lights. And you carefully, I mean, it was like a nursery in a hospital. Like you took the lid off. You're like, "Look at these." Oh my gosh, look at the little streaks. They're little streaks. And in my mind, I was like, this is so cool. I don't know anything about this, but this is really cool. So, so I think that kind of sparked something in me. I mean, I'm not a hybridizer. I don't grow them myself.
I'm gonna get you into this one of these
I
days.
know, I feel like you might because
Yeah. It's
I
so rewarding. Yeah.
yeah, and I think that's kind of I'm hoping that some of our listeners are nodding their heads going, "Yeah, I totally get that." My house is not exactly laid out the same way, and I still have kids that need a taxi, and so I'm kind of at that stage of life where I'm on the go all the time. But hey, seasons of life, right? I mean, someday I'll have extra bedrooms in the basement I can do this with. So anyway, but I would say that summer, that spring, which I guess would then be just last spring, I decided, okay, I'm going to join some of these Facebook groups. I'm going to figure out. And if I decide to get interested in something, I go full force. And so I was spending all of my time just learning and learning like a sponge, just soaking up whatever information I could get. I started going to these backyard sales. I mean, a lot of these women will, every year pot up some of their hosta and invite you over to, buy them for fairly cheap. And I started going to some swaps and I went to a hosta sale. And just, yes, I came home with some beautiful plants and some very unique plants, but I also came home with a lot of knowledge and a larger network. And that was very, very exciting to me. And so I'm excited to see those same people again this summer. What I
Hence
said.
why it's called the friendship plant, right?
Yes, that's
Yeah.
exactly right. We probably should reference that on this
Yeah.
podcast, shouldn't we?
Now,
Yeah.
now I don't live in a zone similar to your zone, and I live in an area where hostas are not necessarily um, commonly grown, and if they are, they take a lot more work to keep
Hmm.
alive. And so the things that I have learned over the last several years is, how much water they need and how much
Hmm.
attention, and making sure that our drought prone area is able to keep them alive. And I don't know many people locally that grow
Hmm.
these. And so, like I said, I do the majority of my purchases online. So I don't have that same network as you do. So it's nice that we do this together, because
Oh.
I can kind of know these same people when I go visit you.
Oh
So it's
yeah.
been
Well, and
fun. Yeah.
and honestly, that was kind of a selfish reason for starting the podcast is I wanted to
Yeah.
have time to talk to you about
Yeah.
hostas because even though yes, there's some networking people up here, but they are not people that I'm going to talk to or text or,
Oh
oh my
yeah.
gosh, did you see blah blah blah,
Yeah,
whatever it
yeah.
is. So that's
Yeah.
still you. You're still that person for me
Well,
and
that's good.
yeah, so selfishly this is two sisters that
Mm.
just wanted to get together and talk
Yeah.
about their favorite plant. So I guess I'll ask you this question. As of right now, this exact minute of recording, what would you say is your favorite hosta right now?
Well, it's kinda like when people say, "Pick your favorite child." Um, you know how hard that would be? Um, I do have a favorite group. I love the fragrant hostas, and if I
Mhm.
have to pick one amongst those, I love the stained glass, I love Holy Moly, I love, the standard guacamole, these ones that grow well in my hot, dry area,
Mhm.
they push out leaves well into August, where when a lot of the normal ones like June, they just sit there. They don't add anything new. They don't get any bigger. These
Mhm.
fragrant ones are
Mhm.
I just adore them. And I love how vigorous they are in their growth. So that's any of that family right now. So
And
oh,
they
and you can't
smell
gotta
so
say
good.
you can't say that without the smell in July and August. Oh, it's just
Mhm.
wonderful smells. So what
Yeah, it
about you?
just brings all those pollinators to your garden. I still really have a soft spot for Climax that Mary gave me. And I think what I've narrowed it down to is it's all the puckering that's on there, all the corrugation that's on
Mhm.
these leaves. And I think I was just out watering yesterday and I found last year Alligator Rock. It's one of Don Rawson's newest ones, and it is just covered with these grooves and crannies and nooks, and I just take
Yep.
my fingers and just kind of run them over. It's almost like Braille. It's
Yeah,
so cool.
those are
So
very cool.
I think those are some of my favorites, and I of course love the really big um like I have an old glory that I love and I'm just waiting for it to get so big. It's
Yeah.
already doubled in size and it's just been in the ground a year.
Yeah.
So anyway, I would say those real craggy ones are kind of they really appeal to me.
Do you have a road rage?
No, I don't. Should I
You
add that
should
to my list?
you should look those up. I've read that
Okay.
those are kinda you either love that style or you hate that style.
Oh,
They look like somebody ran over it, you know?
okay. Well, I
Yeah.
will add that to the list. I
Yeah.
mean, it's a long list at this point.
Yeah, it is, yeah.
But next weekend, actually this coming weekend, is the Minnesota Hosta Society sale. I think the day this podcast drops is going to be the sale day. And I'm
Okay.
very eager to get up there right at the crack of dawn and really start digging through and seeing, because that's where I found some of the more unique ones.
Okay, this next segment is going to be a reoccurring segment, and it's called Finish the Rhyme. I'm going to ask Betsy a rhyme, and she's going to finish it. So,
Hopefully.
all right, ready?
Okay.
It's mini and round and beloved for years. A tiny blue hosta named.
Oh, I think I got it. Is it blue mouse ears?
You got it.
Okay.
Yay.
Okay. Well, good. Well, thank you for lobbing me a softball there on that one. Okay. I have one for you. Let's see if you can figure it out. It's curling leaves are wild and free. They twist and shout with reckless glee. It spins and laughs beside the tree. This playful one is.
Whee!
Very good. You even said it with the exclamation at the end. I think it's the only hosta with an exclamation, don't you think?
I think so. I think so.
We should definitely had more punctuation in our names of hostas. Maybe if
That's
you get a good streaker that you have, you can just
right.
give it some kind of
I'll have to
explosive
think
name.
about that. I'll have to
Yeah,
think about that. Yeah.
for sure, for sure.
So, what inspired you to create Hosta la Vista?
That is a good question. I was out in the garden and I really wanted to listen to a podcast about hostas because, mine are, I'm several weeks behind your growing zone. And I really wanted something to kind of tide me over while these little, fingerlings were still poking up out of the ground. And of course, yours were already lush and beautiful. And so I would go out there and I'd talk to them and I'd weed. And I thought, oh, I'm going to put a podcast on. And there just wasn't one. So at that point, I've done enough things with my children's sports teams, like manage the team, book the hotels, all that kind of stuff. And I know that, and listeners, maybe you know these 10 most important words in a person's life. If it is to be, it is up to me. I really have taken that to heart. And I thought, I could sit here and wait years for somebody to make a Hosta podcast, or I could call my sister and have a reason to talk to her every single week and invite really great guests on. So that was kind of the impetus to start the podcast.
I'm glad you did.
Yeah,
This
me
is
too.
fun. Yeah. Okay, so what can listeners expect in future episodes?
Ah, that is a very good question. Well, I'm in the process of lining up some really great guests. Listeners, if you are into hostas at all, you are going to recognize these names. We have had some great responses so far from guests. And so I would say expect great guests, great banter, hopefully some learning, maybe a couple of fun recurring segments that we're trying out. And did I mention some really great guests? Because we got some amazing people coming on our podcast. So please follow along.
Awesome. That's
Yeah.
great.
Yeah. So, just a couple of lessons from the garden, and you are further in your journey than I am. So, I just want to ask you, if you could narrow it down, what has gardening with hostas taught you?
I think it comes back to survival of the fittest. And if it's not meant to be, if they die, that's it. That was their chance to live in my garden, and I tend to not replace them.
Hmm.
There have been a couple that I have been very sad to see go, and I have found replacements. Also, that some hostas don't do well here. Some
Hmm.
hostas like elegans, my first two that I ever bought. I think they are more suited for northern climates, and um, I will keep keep them alive, but come August, they look pretty sad, pretty
Yeah.
crispy, pretty
Crisp.
unhappy. And I've now, since I can kind of choose what I want, what hostas I want to buy, I can look in their lineage, and if there's elegans in their lineage, I tend to pass. I tend to go for
Hmm.
things that do flourish here.
But
So
if you see Plantagenea, in their lineage.
Yes, yes.
You're like, bring
Yes,
it on.
but as somebody who grows, hostas from seed, I like to get breeder plants,
Oh, for
and,
sure.
the fragrance, they do not breed well. They
Mm,
are, can be limited or difficult in their seed production, so and I think that's mainly because they bloom so late in the season, but
yeah.
I could be wrong. I'm still learning a lot, so
Yeah. Hey, that's why we're having experts come on the show because we may not know it all, but we are smart enough to know to bring experts on the show. So,
yeah,
so
no
take
kidding.
what we say with a grain of salt. You can take the advice of the experts. So, I'll ask you one more thing. Biggest challenge you have faced in your own garden?
I think gardening is just a series of experiments, right? One experiment after another, after another, after another. You find what works for you, what doesn't work for you. What challenges I have early in the season are definitely different than challenges later in the season. So right now, I'm dealing with cutworms that are
Oh,
just literally cutting the leaves in half of. These are my second year streaked babies that I've, literally, babied, and it's so maddening. So
mm,
between that and, the it gets so dry over here, and I've gotta put soaker hoses going most of the day, and, that kind of thing. Those are some good challenges for me, but,
hmm.
throw in an armadillo or a,
What do you mean armadillo? What
a
do you mean?
slug or whatever. We've had to deal with armadillos in the past, and, last year, we had a particular armadillo that made a burrow in our perennial bed. I knew it was in there. It's this giant baseball-sized opening,
Oh God.
and every night he'd come out and he'd waddle around the yard and he would dig up hostas, just 2 or 3, 4 or 5 a night. And so
Oh
every
no.
morning, I'd put on my boots and get my shovel, and I'd go out and find whatever carnage he has produced from the night before, and I curse him while I'm replanting these hostas every morning. And this went on for 2 months. I could see him. I could go out in the evening and he they don't have great eyesight, so you can get up close to them. Not that I did. And I went on YouTube and I learned that baiting a trap for an armadillo is pretty much impossible, and that the only way you can catch them is to corral them into a trap, and that once they hit a wall or a hard surface, they will follow that hard surface along until, they walk right into a trap. And I set up a little corral around the opening to the burrow, and I put a live trap at the end of the corral. And by the next morning, he was sleeping in the live trap. And
Mm.
so I loaded him in the back of the truck, put a little blanket over him, and then drove him 20 miles south. I let him go in a nice little wooded area, and I said, "Do not come back. You are not welcome." And
And he hasn't come back, has he?
he has not come back. No,
Okay,
but
good.
I don't know. There's a lot of armadillos here, so
That's crazy. Oh my
yeah,
gosh. Wow.
yeah, good
That's
times, good
insane.
good times. So,
Oh, hopefully you
uh,
don't get any more.
I hear you. I hear you. But I have a question for you. What would you tell your beginner self?
Well, in a lot of ways, I still feel like a beginner. So I think I'm still suffering from imposter syndrome, which I'm pretty sure everybody on the planet has at some point. But I would say maybe pace yourself. For a while, I was buying hostas that I didn't have prepared beds for. And I would get the hostas home and then they would sit in their pots for weeks while I scooped out rocks. And they were beautiful to look at, and I'm sure they were fine, but I kind of felt pressure to get them in the ground. So I would say if I could go back and talk to myself, it would be get your spot prepared first, then start buying your hostas and having fun.
I will always say that buying hostas is a whole separate hobby than planting hostas, caring for them. So,
Yes, it's
yeah.
almost like some women are into expensive purses. I feel
Mhm.
like you and I are into expensive plants.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. Yeah.
Okay, so our last little segment before we wrap up is called Rapid Fire This or That. I'm going to ask you a question. You can't think about it. You don't have any time to ponder it. And you just have to tell me one of the two things that I'm going to say. Are you ready?
Okay.
Okay, so no thinking about it. Here we go. Minis or giants?
Well, that's super easy. Giants. The bigger, the better.
Okay, very good.
Okay. Labels or map of garden?
Labels. How about buy online or in-person nursery haul?
See, I'd say it's half and half, but I probably own more from online nurseries.
Okay. Well, you can definitely specialize a little more that way, I think.
You can.
Yeah.
And you can look up exactly what you're buying. Okay. Companion plant. Fern or a stilby?
Oh, well, sorry. I have a stilbies. I would say fern. I like the kind of low growing fern a little better than the tall ostrich style fern, but I can't keep a stilby alive. I can't even keep them alive a month. They're just crispy and dried up and oh Lord. So yes, I would say fern for sure. Well,
Goodness.
listeners, we want to thank you for tuning in to our very first episode of Hosta la Vista. And just note that episodes are released every Saturday, and we look forward to having you join us again.
Please subscribe and follow wherever you listen to podcasts. Leave a review and follow us on Facebook. If you have questions or ideas for an episode, email us at hostalavistapodcast@gmail.com.
And folks, that's Hosta with an O. So next week, we are going to be talking with a real deal Hosta show judge and grower. We are very excited to have her on the pod. Folks, thanks for listening and hasta la vista, baby.
That sounds good.